What would happen if you suddenly woke up and found yourself living in the Middle Ages? No, not as a noble knight or a radiant princess, but sleeping on damp straw, eating bread harder than bricks, and at night fighting for space with rats. You step outside, the air is freezing, the road is nothing but mud and breakfast. Oh, just a thin bowl of porridge, so bland that you start thinking, maybe plain warm water would taste better. Sounds tragic, doesn't it? But imagine all of that told in a slow, lulling rhythm, with a touch of sarcasm that makes you chuckle softly while drifting into sleep. That is history for sleep. If you're curious to experience the Middle Ages in the safest way possible, meaning without actually sleeping on straw, hit like, share, and subscribe. And now, let me take you on a journey through a real day in medieval life. You open your eyes and see nothing, not because you're blind, but because the darkness is still absolute. This isn't the cozy darkness of a modern bedroom, where curtains shut out the light and a night lamp glows in soft amber. This is the darkness of a medieval hut, heavy with the staleness of old smoke, laced with the damp smell of straw, so thick you feel like you could bite into it, like cold, congealed porridge. Outside, the rooster has crowed. It crows tirelessly, as if announcing something important. But you already know, nothing important is happening. It crows because that's its job. You give a bitter smile. In this age, everyone must work themselves to exhaustion, even the rooster. You try to lift yourself from the pile of straw. It crackles, clinging to your hair, your clothes. You brush it off, but straw never leaves you. Loyal as a dog, except at least a dog keeps you warm and guards the house. Straw only makes you itch. Beside you, the whole family is still huddled close. The children whimper softly before drifting back to sleep, while the adults stir, about to wake. Here, no one gets to sleep in. Dawn isn't meant to be savored, it's meant to be survived. You pull the blanket higher, though calling it a blanket is generous. It's really just a coarse woolen cloth, thick and heavy like a drenched sheep, and smelling no better than the sheep itself. People call that warmth. You think, maybe in this age, warmth only means not freezing to death immediately. The sound of rats rises from the corner of the hut. Gnawing, scurrying, scratching. You don't scream like someone in a modern movie. In this time, rats aren't intruders, they're roommates. Sometimes they're even useful. If you're lucky, they'll chew through the crust of your hard bread, so your teeth don't have to suffer. If you're unlucky, they'll eat the bread entirely. Historians debate endlessly about the causes of medieval plagues, but you don't need debates. You hear them gnawing every night, and you already know the answer. Wind slips through the warped wooden walls, whistling softly. You shiver. In this time, wind isn't just wind. It's a reminder that winter can kill faster than a knife. Your eyes wander to the hearth. The ashes are cold, with only one faint red ember struggling to breathe. It crackles like an old man sighing. If no one rises soon to revive it, you'll be shivering all morning, and perhaps even cursing the century you were born into. You breathe deeply. The air is thick with old smoke, soaked into your hair, your clothes, your skin. You think, if this scent were ever bottled for sale in the modern world, it would be called Eau de Survival, the fragrance of getting by. And perhaps no one would buy it unless they were filming a history documentary. Outside, a dog howls, dragging its echo into the distance. The air stirs with noise, roosters crowing, dogs howling, rats scrambling, wind moaning. A full symphony, free of charge, and one you'd never want to hear again. Modern people call morning fresh. You would call it loud but cold. You sit up, your spine cracking like straw. Your eyes sting from smoke. Your throat is parched. You reach for water, only to remember there is none, at least not clean. If you want to drink, you'll wait for someone to fetch it from the well. And the well is a few hundred meters away. In this cold wind, perhaps thirst is the lesser pain. Still, you can comfort yourself. At least you have teeth. Teeth to chew bread as hard as stone. Not everyone in the village is so lucky. Many lose half a jaw with just one bite. Bread here doesn't only feed you, it also performs excellent dental checkups. You lean back for a moment, listening to the whisper of dying embers, the wind brushing the thatch, the rats squeaking. Before dawn, time drags slow and lazy, as if even the sun doesn't want to wake. And you realize, perhaps, that is the secret philosophy of the Middle Ages. When everything is harsh, you learn to stretch one more breath, one more minute of quiet, even if it comes wrapped in cold drafts and rat chatter. Historians still debate, was it this very slowness that shaped the rhythm of medieval life? You don't need an answer. You only know that right now, before dawn. Surviving one more hour is already enough. You close your eyes with a weary smile. Before the light arrives, your day begins, not with brightness, but with darkness, ashes, and a touch of self-mockery. You rise in the gloom, your hand groping for the heavy woolen cloth. The ashes are cold, the rats still scurrying, the wind still howling. And so, from within the thick dark, you know you must step into the next part of the day, waking fully inside a poor straw hut. You stir. The straw beneath you rustles, as if reminding you it was there all night, and will cling to you all day. A strand sticks in your hair. You pull it out, only to find 3 more sneaking into your shirt. In truth, living in a straw hut is like having a relentless lover, one that never lets you go, no matter how little you want them. The light outside isn't dawn yet, just a pale gray leaking through the warped walls. So faint that you wonder if the sun itself is lazy, unwilling to rise on this cold, miserable world. Historians like to romanticize the sunrise, but you know the truth. Morning light here only exposes more dust and more rats darting about. You inhale. The smell of damp straw, old smoke, and bodies unwashed for who knows how long. In the Middle Ages, the idea of daily baths sounds like a joke. If someone told you they bathed once a day, you'd think them possessed by demons. In reality, 1 bath a season was considered luxury. And so you comfort yourself now, thinking that sweat is simply the scent of honest labor. Or at least, it's the scent everyone shares, so no one notices. You glance at your family. The children curl together, heads tucked in, while the adults snore like an old orchestra tuning up. In the corner, a hen clucks softly, perhaps also searching for warmth. In the hut, there is no such thing as privacy. Family, livestock, insects, rats, all sharing one roof, one breath, one cold. If you think that sounds unbearable, remember, modern rent prices are just as cruel. At least here, you pay no rent. You pay with your labor for life. The ashes in the hearth are cold, but your mother, or your wife, depending on your role, has risen to rekindle the fire. The crackle of dry wood sparks, and golden orange light begins to dance on the crooked walls. Your heart eases. This little flame is the daily miracle, fragile, flickering, yet it keeps everyone alive. In this century, faith in God and faith in embers share equal power. Both grant hope that you'll live one more day. You step from your bedding. Your feet touch the ground, cold, damp, muddy. People call this a floor. You call it a miniature field. There are no tiles, no boards, just packed earth sprinkled with straw. Each step offers a flavor, damp soil, moisture, and sometimes chicken droppings. You grimace, but remind yourself, at least it's natural. The same authentic experience. Modern people now pay extra or at countryside homestays. You hear the wind outside, whistling through the thatch roof. It slips into the gaps, scratching your skin. The rats scramble, but no one bothers to chase them. You're used to them now. In fact, they almost keep you company. In this world, companionship sometimes comes from rodents. The adults are stirring. Wooden spoons clatter in clay pots. Breakfast must be coming, black bread, hard as stone, and a bit of thin porridge. You swallow, not from hunger, but to steel yourself. Breakfast here is not joy, but duty. That piece of bread might make your teeth crack like twigs, as though testing the limits of your jaw. But still, it will keep you full for a few hours. You sigh, looking around. The small hut, the warped wooden walls, the leaking thatched roof. Everything is poor, cold, bare. Yet in this century, this is normal. In fact, you are considered lucky. You have a roof, a hearth, straw to sleep on, and rats to share it with. Those poorer than you only have the open sky as their blanket and pillow. Historians still debate, was medieval life truly unbearable, or are we simply looking with modern eyes, accustomed to comfort? You know the truth, whether it was misery or normality, it was still reality. And you must still wake up in this straw hut every morning, every year, for your whole life. You sit still for a moment, letting the newly kindled fire warm your hands. Outside, the wind still howls, the ashes still drift, the rats still gnaw. Yet, for a brief instant, you feel a softness, as if the world, with all its mud, straw, and stench, paused to give you one small moment to breathe. You close your eyes with a bitter smile. Waking in the straw hut, that is the opening act of a medieval day. A day that promises nothing except that you are still alive to endure it. You sit still for a moment, letting the newly kindled fire warm your hands. Outside, the wind still howls, the ashes still drift, the rats still gnaw. Yet for a brief instant, you feel a calmness, as if the world, with all its mud, straw, and stench, paused to give you one fragile moment of peace. Then the church bells ring, distant but clear, echoing long through the morning mist. They call everyone's eyes toward God and remind you, a new day has truly begun. You know, after waking in the straw hut, the very first thing you must do is pray. The bells resound in the fog, deep and steady, like the heartbeat of the village. You lift your head, still seated in the straw hut, and automatically make the sign of the cross. No reminder needed, no thought required. In this age, the morning prayer is as natural as a modern person checking their phone notifications right after waking. You whisper a few lines of prayer, your eyes still fixed on the revived embers. Truthfully, part of you prays for your soul, another part prays that the fire won't die again. In the Middle Ages, salvation and warmth often walk hand in hand. Modern people may debate theology, but you know this. Without fire, the whole household will shiver, like sinners before the final judgment. Pale light filters through the warped wooden walls. It reveals the dust drifting in the air, heavy with smoke. You inhale the acrid scent of ash, mixed with coarse wool, human sweat, and mildew. You think, if heaven truly exists, hopefully it smells a little better than this. You kneel. Your knees press into damp earth. The soil is soft, cold, sticky with mud. You shiver, then tell yourself, this is the posture of humility. They say, from dust you came, to dust you shall return. You think, with this floor, you are returning to dust a bit early. A rat scurries past, right in front of you. It pays no attention to sacredness. You glance at it, then at the little cross hanging on the wall. For a moment you wonder, does God ever care about rats? Probably not. Or perhaps rats are simply doing their duty too, sowing fear and reminding you that life is never secure. Historians still argue about how much medieval people truly believed in God. But looking at this scene, you think, belief or not, no one dares skip morning prayer. You whisper longer now, lips moving in the white mist of your breath. The words repeat, slow and steady, like small waves lapping. You drift into the rhythm, almost lulled back into sleep. Prayer, in the end, is a kind of lullaby, except one recited when you are forced to be awake. Outside, the bells toll again. Their echo stretches across fields, still drowned in mist. You imagine the whole village kneeling at once, in huts as damp as yours. A sacred scene? Perhaps. A comical one? Perhaps too. Dozens of mud-stained people, hair disheveled, kneeling in cold mud, whispering to a distant deity, all just hoping today will be less cold than yesterday. The fire flares a little brighter, orange light flickering across the floor. Relief washes over you, as though your prayer has been answered. But deep down, you know, the credit belongs to the hand that stoked the fire, not to a miracle. They say God helps those who help themselves. You think in this century, that saying is twice as true. Prayer finished, you rise, brushing mud from your knees. The mud clings stubbornly. You sigh. Perhaps this too is a metaphor for medieval life. You try to shake poverty off, but it sticks like mud. The hut is brighter now, though the air is still thick with drifting ash. Children rub their eyes. Adults begin preparing the first meal of the day. You hear wooden spoons scraping clay pots, bowls clinking together. Your stomach reminds you, prayer is done, but hunger remains. You step closer to the hearth, peering into the old iron pot. Steam rises, carrying the plain smell of grain. Breakfast waits. And you know, this is the true first trial of the day. The iron pot begins to bubble, a thin steam curling into the low hut. The smell of bland grains spreads, not the inviting aroma of modern coffee, but just enough to remind you there is something to fill your stomach. In this age, breakfast is not joy, but obligation. You sit by the hearth, holding your hands to the fire. The flame crackles softly, wood snapping in tiny bursts. It isn't truly warm, just enough to stop your fingers from trembling. You glance at the pot, porridge so thin, it's mostly water, with a few lonely grains floating. Modern people would call it detox soup. Medieval people call it a meal. Your mother ladles porridge into wooden bowls, each scoop clinking against the iron. You take a bowl, sniffing. The smell is so faint, it is almost no smell at all. You sip. Your tongue confirms it is warm water with a hint of grains in tension. You swallow, and the dryness in your throat eases a little. Not tasty, not disgusting, just survival. The black bread is set on the table. It is hard, black, and dense, as though cut straight from a log of wood. You break a piece, it snaps with a sharp crack. The sensation is like working at a forge, only without hammer and anvil. Historians still debate, was medieval black bread truly as difficult to eat as the legends say? But you already know, when a single bite nearly breaks your teeth, you need no further proof. You chew. The dry crunch of your jaw blends with the fire's faint crackle. Blindfold someone, and they might not tell which is wood popping and which is your teeth wrestling the bread. But you still swallow, because here, swallowing means one more day alive. The children slurp porridge, faces ringed with it. The adults sit quietly, eating in small bites, their vacant eyes on the fire. No one talks much. Eating isn't for conversation, it's for saving strength. Every spoon of porridge, every bite of bread, is fuel to haul a body out to the fields. You try another bite of bread. This one is thick, hard enough to make you wonder if the village mason mixed lime into the dough. You chuckle to yourself. If he did, at least it keeps you full longer. Modern people like bread that's risen, soft, airy. Medieval people think the more brick-like the bread, the more trustworthy it is. A sip of weak ale is poured, not a merry drink, but a pale yellow liquid, slightly brackish, only a little better than well water. Medieval folk drink ale instead of water because wells are rarely safe. You wet your lips, it's a little sour, a little bitter, and not fragrant at all. But at least it won't kill you on the spot. And that is the highest standard for beverages right now. You sit still and listen to everything. Wooden spoons tapping stoneware bowls, children slurping, the fire snapping, the wind outside hissing through the thatch. This world is stitched from small repeating sounds, like a sleepy song with no chorus. You sip the last spoonful. The bowl is empty, but your stomach is more empty than full. You sigh. That's the truth. Breakfast doesn't fill you. It only makes you less hungry. Just enough not to collapse in the fields. And that is enough. You wipe your mouth and stand. Straw crackles underfoot, ash drifts in the weak light. Outside, the wind still howls. The church bells have fallen silent, and the sun, finally, begins to lift, shining through thin mist. You know it's time for the fields. With breakfast done, there's no reason to sit by the fire. The real day begins not in the hut, but out on the muddy fields. With calloused hands, you step out of the hut. The wind surges in, knife cold, as if the whole village had conspired with nature to snuff out the fragile warmth you gathered at the hearth. Smoke still clings to your hair. The coarse wool smell clings to your clothes. Now add the scent of wet soil and animal dung rising from the lane. A full symphony of smells, absolutely free. Underfoot, the mud is thick as paste. Shoes? Sorry, you don't have any. Only bare feet or crude sandals, and they're quickly plastered with gray-brown muck. You lift your foot and hear the squish, schloop, like a spoon stirring thin porridge. Modern people pay for mud spas. You have one every day, all your life, for free. The path to the fields isn't paved. It's a track cut through the plots, stony and flooded. With every step, you shiver and wonder, if you slip, will you land in that fresh cow pat right beside you? It's the game of chance medieval people must play. No lottery ticket required. On your shoulder, you carry a plow, or a staff, or something heavy enough to fold your back. Historians often argue about peasant productivity. You know better. Productivity is nothing, next to the ability to survive. Your bent spine is the proof. You lift your head. The fields stretch out, dim in the morning mist. On the blotched ground, a few lazy cows chew. Their lowing sounds half complaint, half mockery. You look at them and wonder, who has it worse? You, turning soil from dawn to dark, or them, pulling the plow? Perhaps misery is equal, except they never write diaries to complain. You set the plow down. Your hands grip the wooden handles, calloused, cracked. The cold makes the skin sting. The mud blackens your nails. You breathe in and pull. The earth is heavy. The mud clings. Sweat beads fast, even in the chill. In this age, you don't need a gym. The field is the gym, and hunger is the coach. Rats? Yes, they're here too. They hide under drying straw and dart off when you approach. They eat the grain, gnaw the sprouts, steal your food. Strangely, you forgive them. Perhaps because they do what everyone does, scramble to survive. You stop gasping. The wind cuts through, and last night's smoke still coats your lungs, making you wheeze. You think it's no wonder medieval lives are short. When every breath feels like hauling the whole straw hut inside your chest, reaching 30 is an achievement. You look around. Others are heading out as well. bent like you, their small shapes print themselves onto the mist. Voices call across, braided with the cows bellowing, the crows cawing, the wind's low howl. A morning song, half sour, half sluggish, but the only music this life allows. A thin ray of sun finally spears the fog. It glints on the dew, turning the grass to little shards of light. Beautiful in its own way, but you know that ray promises nothing except longer, harder hours, as heat and dust soon replace cold and mist. You bend and keep plowing. Each turned furrow is a promise of seed and harvest. But you don't dare trust it. One storm, one blight, or simply more rats than usual can turn all your labor into nothing. Historians say medieval peasants lived with uncertainty. You think that sounds refined? It's just a polite way to say, you plow this morning, and tonight, you still might have nothing to eat. You straighten. Pain stabs your back. You lean on the plow and look across the fields to others still stooped. A brief bitterness passes. Then you laugh under your breath. At least you're not alone. Everyone suffers the same. Synchronized suffering is its own kind of comfort. You breathe in and out, hearing the wind sweep across the empty fields. Then you bend again, your hands gripping the rough handles of the plow. Morning work has only begun, and soon the sounds of labor will echo across the village, blended with the ring of the blacksmith's hammer, the groan of the mill, the shouts of children. You drive the blade deep into the earth, hearing the mud rise with a heavy thud. Each furrow sounds like the ground sighing. The ox snorts and strains, the rope stretches taut, the wood creaks. The whole field becomes a slow, weary orchestra, and you, an unwilling musician. The sounds of labor don't come only from the fields. From afar, the village is fully awake. The blacksmith's hammer strikes in steady beats, clang, clang, like a private morning bell. You probably never wanted to be a musician, but his heavy hammer still produces songs no one asked for. Modern people call it industrial noise. Medieval people call it neighbors. You pause and listen. Somewhere the grain mill groans, wood grinding stone, creak, creak, complaining with every turn. And really, it has reason to complain. Its work is not much different from yours. Turning, turning, only to produce a little flour, not always enough to feed a family. Historians debate the technological capacity of the Middle Ages. But when you hear the mill's weary moan, you know, with or without technology, complaint is the eternal sound of labor. Children's voices rise, crying, laughing, running clumsily around the village. They don't know the line between play and chores. To them, the world is one giant mud yard, a place to fall again and again. You glance over thinking, well, at least they're happy. In just a few years, they'll grip plows like you, and mud will stop being a game. The wind sweeps past, carrying ash from someone's hearth, drifting through the air. It stings your eyes. You sneeze. You wonder, is the whole village sharing ash with one another, passing smoke around so everyone gets their fair share? A kind of community, but through the lungs. Dogs bark. Chickens scatter. goats bleat, all mixed together, weaving into the morning symphony. No conductor, no rhythm, but somehow the sounds blend into what you call an ordinary day. Modern people complain about neighbors renovating. You are used to an entire village making noise, dawn to dusk. You keep pulling the plow, clods bursting, mud squelching beneath your feet. Your hands burn, calluses split, but the handle stays stubborn. It doesn't care if you ache or tire, it only scrapes your palm with its steady, nagging creak. In that sound, you hear your lifespan, short, yet grinding down, day by day. A rat darts across the freshly turned soil. It slips quick, ignoring the sweat dripping from your brow. You watch it, a little envious. Rats don't plow, don't harvest, yet they still eat. Freeloader, thief, but more carefree than the farmer. Historians rarely mention rat noises, but you know, if history were honest, rat sounds would be ranked among the top in medieval life. You raise your face. Sweat mixed with ash falls salty on your lips. The sounds of labor surround you still. The panting of a neighbor, the oxes grumble, the hammers strike, the mills churn, the children's shrieks. A noisy, unmelodic song, but steady, like the heartbeat of the whole village. It isn't pretty, not harmonious, but strangely, it makes you feel safe. If you can still hear labor, it means people are still here, still surviving. You bend again, plowing on. The wind sweeps through again, ash drifts again, mud squelches again. Time drips slowly, each furrow, each sound, like water drops, falling one by one. You know this morning will dissolve into midday, and the sounds of work will give way to the rhythm of sun, hunger, and spreading fatigue. You blow hard and look up. The sun climbs higher, the light harsher. The noise continues, but you no longer separate each sound. Together, they blur into a gray backdrop of life. And on that backdrop, the morning simply drifts along. At last, the sun tears free of the mist, no longer a pale smear, but a round, chalk-white disk hanging above. Light floods down, and the fields sharpen, blotched mud, weeds sprouting through, bent bodies stretching like crooked lines written in sweat. You straighten, wiping your brow. Sweat, salty and caked with soil, leaves your face plastered as though with a natural mud mask. Modern people would call it a mineral skincare treatment. Medieval people simply call it dirty. The plow still rasps through the soil, but now your ears catch the low drone of bees. They float lazily over the fields, not caring who bends to toil below. You glance at them, thinking, at least bees have honey. You had thin porridge. Historians debate whether medieval people were malnourished. You smile bitterly. Try a day on wooden bread and watered porridge. You'll have the answer. The wind shifts again, no longer icy, but carrying warmth. Smoke drifts away from the village, faint in the air. You breathe in, it still stings. Smoke, it seems, is the seasoning fixed to every meal of the day. Morning, noon, night. Someone always tends a fire, and someone always breathes the smoke. You grip the plow tighter and pull again. The soil hardens as the sun dries the surface. Your palms sting, the calluses split and bleed in tiny rivulets. You glance down and see red drops blending into brown mud. A new color for the field, but no one notices. Here, blood is like rain. It falls, then disappears. Above, crows rasp, caw, caw, like old men criticizing your effort. You squint up and wonder, are they waiting for you to sow so they can steal, or waiting for you to collapse, or another kind of meal? In this world, even birds like to freeload. You plow on, your breath heavy. Around you, others are the same. Bent backs, lowered faces, rough hands. No one talks much. Morning has passed into weary silence, each person sinking into their work. The hammer, the mill, the chickens fade to the distance. In the field remain only the wind, the soil, and human breath. You glance at your neighbor. He is old, his back twisted, yet still he grips the plow, hands trembling. You sigh. He has likely done this all his life. And you realize your future is the mirror before you. Modern people say work shapes the person. You think here, work shapes the hunch. A rat scurries across the fresh furrow again. It glances at you, quick and sharp, then vanishes. You give a faint smile. Rats always seem cheerful, even when you are exhausted. They are the true optimists of this world. You envy them, but only for a moment. After all, rats live with the same smoke, the same ash, the same mud, only they never complain. The sun climbs higher, heat pressing down. The coarse wool on your back is soaked with sweat, heavy, itchy. But you don't dare take it off. The sun may burn, but the wind is still cold. Medieval people don't play the heat versus cold game with air conditioning. You have only one solution: endure both at once. You stop, exhaling hard. Your stomach growls, another sound added to the symphony of the fields. Time has passed. Morning is giving way to noon, and your body begs for something, anything, to refuel. Not tasty, not plentiful, but enough to trick the belly. You prop the plow upright and wipe your hands on coarse cloth trousers. Dirt sticks, blood sticks, sweat sticks, all fused into one grimy layer, your second skin. You tilt your head to the sun, nearly at its peak. Morning is over. It's time to think about lunch, poor as it is, but long awaited. You set the plow aside, your back aching, as if you've carried the whole village on your shoulders. The sun stands high, pouring heat over the drying mud, turning dust into floating ash. Sweat on your face crusts into white salt, stinging your lips. That is the natural seasoning you always carry. Villagers drift together or sit right in the fields, huddled under trees or along fences. You do the same. You drop to the dry earth, which feels no softer than stone. Your belly growls loudly, a reminder that morning prayers were not enough. Wooden bread and thin porridge left your stomach long ago. A cloth bag is opened. Inside lies black bread, harder than in the morning. You try to break it, it resists fiercely, cracking like brittle bones. Modern people love soft, fluffy sandwiches. Medieval folk have sand brick, edible stone, tough enough to test your teeth. You chew, your jaw creaks, and you can't tell whether the sound comes from your mouth or the hammer striking in the distance. A bit of cheese is added. Not golden, smooth cheese from an ad, but a dry, salty lump that clings to your tongue. You think, without cheese, this bread would murder the stomach. With cheese, at least death is salted. An onion comes out. You bite, tears spring up. Not from emotion, but from the sting. Perhaps this is the only seasoning strong enough to mask the taste of wooden bread and sour cheese. Modern people call it rustic cuisine. Medieval people call it eating so you don't collapse. There's more weak ale. You sip, the sour, brackish taste spreads. Not delicious, not fragrant, but it helps push the bread down. You smirk. The well water is filthy. Ale is safer. No wonder the whole village drinks beer as if it were plain water. Historians sometimes marvel at the amount of beer consumed in the Middle Ages. But you know, it isn't pleasure. It's survival. You glance around. Everyone eats in silence, with only the dry crunch of chewing and the heavy gulp of swallowing. No one praises, no one complains. A meal is a meal, plain, joyless, but necessary. Children slurp noisily. One even gnaws at a crust dropped in the dirt. You smile bitterly. Here, the 5-second rule isn't a rule. It's a privilege. Having anything to pick up at all is luck. A rat edges near the bag, sharp-eyed, waiting for a slip. You wave your hand. It darts away. But surely it will return. Rats know the law well. Your poor lunch is their lunch too. Sometimes you can't even tell who is the host and who is the guest. You keep chewing. The last bite is thick, hard, but you endure it. You don't eat for pleasure, but because without it, the afternoon would devour your strength. So bite by bite, sip by sour sip, you invest in surviving the hours ahead. The sun glares. Dust lifts higher. You shield your face, glance up. No clock tells you when to rest. Only the shadows shrinking, only the faint sense of being less hungry. That's the signal to stand. You brush your trousers, but the dirt clings stubbornly, refusing to leave. Just like medieval life, the more you try to shake it off, the deeper it sticks. You sigh, step toward the plow. Your back bends again. Your hands grip wood. The earth squelches underfoot. Lunch ends, leaving no aftertaste except this. You still have enough strength to go on. And in the end, that is its only meaning. You return to the field after the meager meal. The hard bread still lodged in your teeth, the sour ale still coating your throat. But no one stops to rest longer. In this century, the noon sun is no excuse to pause. It's a reason to work faster, before darkness falls too soon. The sunlight beats down, like an invisible hand slapping over and over. The coarse wool on your back is heavy with sweat. The smell of sweat, mixed with hot earth and animal dung, becomes the communal perfume of the whole village. Modern people pay dearly for sandalwood, for musk. You need only an afternoon in the fields, free and stubbornly lasting. The plow bites deep again. its blade screeching with every stroke. Your palms burn, the calluses sting. You pant, lungs tight, as though the morning smoke still grips inside. The wind blows, carrying dry dust that burns your eyes. You rub them and think, if miracles exist, they only appear as a gentler gust of wind. Cows bellow. Crows caw above. From the village comes the occasional howl of a dog, as if even the animals are commenting on your misery. You laugh bitterly. The creatures, too, add their notes to the afternoon symphony. And you, though exhausted, remain the main instrument, dragging this dreary music forward with each heavy stroke of the plow. After a while, the sun tilts westward. Its light grows golden, but the heat doesn't fade. Your body feels like an iron pot, simmering over fire. Sweat pours down, soaking into the soil, turning into salt inside every grain of dust. You think, if someone measured it, perhaps the whole field is watered by sweat, as much as by rain. Around you, others shuffle on just the same. No one talks. Breathing. Footsteps in the mud. The grind of wood, all blend into one dull rhythm. Historians call this the collective spirit of labor. You think it feels more like collective exhaustion. You raise your head. Beyond the fence, a group of children runs by. They laugh, throwing clumps of mud at each other, faces smeared. You click your tongue. In a few years, those same hands will no longer throw mud for fun, but grip plows like yours, casting sweat into the soil. Play here is only rehearsal for labor. A rat appears, darting along the furrow. It plucks a stray peanut and slips away. You watch, envious. It works little, eats much. You work much, and may not eat at all. That unfairness is older than history itself. The afternoon drags on. Sunlight softens, the sky deepens into amber. The wind eases, carrying the smell of smoke from the village. Someone has lit the hearth for supper. The smoky air stirs your stomach again, though midday wasn't long ago. You smile faintly. Here, hunger has no schedule. It is your most faithful companion from dawn till night. You lean on the plow and sigh. Your back aches, your legs are heavy. But the work isn't finished. Fields still need furrows, seeds still need sowing. The day refuses to end, and you have no right to stop. Modern people can speak of work-life balance. Medieval life knows only work-work balance. You push on, cutting a few more lines, until the shadows stretch long across the ground. The heat fades, but fatigue settles deeper into your bones. You look up. The sky has turned gray-blue, the crows have flown home, and soon, the church bells will announce the evening. You know the long afternoon is closing, and when it closes, the village shifts to a different rhythm. The small market fair. Not cheerful like a festival, not lively like a holy day, but still a change. A new note in the monotone song of daily life. You leave the field as evening shadows spill wide. Your legs are heavy as timber, your back bent from plowing, yet your stomach growls again. The good news, tonight, there's a market. The bad news, a market doesn't mean abundance. It only means a chance to trade what you lack for what someone else lacks less. And usually, everyone lacks alike. The road to the market is muddy, still squelching underfoot. You think, no signboard needed here. The smells do the advertising. The musk of tanned hides, the sharpness of dried fish, the sourness of cheese. the smoke from traveling hearths, all blending into one collective perfume. Modern noses would wrinkle, but you are used to it. To you, this is the scent of opportunity and of survival. Voices call out everywhere. A cloth seller shouts, "Strong, very strong," though you see it's ready to tear. A salt vendor cradles his wares like gold. And indeed, salt is more precious here than many shining things. You touch the coarse grains, spilling like sand, and you understand, sometimes, this sharp taste preserves life better than prayers. A child tugs at his mother, pointing at a tiny honey cake on the stall. His eyes shine as if he's glimpsed heaven. You look, then smile sadly. That little cake costs as much as his family's whole day of labor. In this age, luxury is not gold or jewels. It is a taste of sweetness. You weave through the crowd, brushing shoulders. Coarse wool scrapes your skin. The smell of sweat and mud mingles thick. Somewhere, a dog barks. Chickens cluck in a wicker cage. And of course, the rats are here too, skittering around the grain stalls, snatching what falls. The market belongs not only to people, but to rats as well. You think, at least the rats know where the fun is. One corner holds entertainment. A minstrel plucks a lute, singing off key, about princes and princesses no one here believes in. Still, they listen. What choice do they have? Modern people have Netflix. Medieval people have one wandering singer, sometimes flat, but enough to keep despair at bay. You try trading. A few scraps of grain for a lump of salt. The weight in your bag shifts, but inside, you feel no richer. Historians debate local trade systems and the strength of communal economies. You know the truth. It's just exchanging one hunger for another, as long as you don't die today. Evening sinks, but the market hums on. Children splash mud. Old women shout themselves hoarse over wilted greens. Old men crouch by braziers, sending smoke into the air. Tired, but livelier than a day in the fields. Perhaps, just to jostle in the crowd, just to hear voices, is already a strange kind of joy. You pause at a candle stall. Yellow wax, sticky, smelling of bees. You touch one, it clings. Candles here are not for romance, not for atmosphere. They are the only defense against the long dark. A single candle can cost as much as several meals. You sigh and step away, knowing food is more necessary than light. The sky deepens. The calls fade. Stalls close. The crowd scatters. You leave the market, a bit of salt in hand, smoke clinging to your clothes. The fair ends, leaving behind drifting ash, wind through thatch, and weariness in your bones. You turn back. The sun rests at the village's edge, its light spread into a deep amber glow. The long afternoon is gone, and another rhythm begins. As the sun falls, the dark returns. The sun sinks lower, sliding behind thatched roofs, its golden glow fading to pale red. The fields fall silent, broken only by the slow footstep of those leaving their work. You too walk on, mud clinging to your heels, heavy, as though the earth itself had tried to keep you all day. The air changes. By day, the wind blew dry, scattering dust and ash everywhere. Now it blows colder, slower, as if drawing the warmth straight out of your body. You pull the coarse wool closer. It's damp, heavy, stinking of smoke and sweat, but it's the only shield you have against the night chill. Modern people have thick coats, heated blankets, even air conditioning. You have one old sheep turned into a sweater and the hope it stays patient enough to keep you warm till morning. The church bells toll again, long and deep, drowning out scattered dog howls. They call for evening prayer. But for you, they also mean something else. The day is truly over. Historians say the bells were the heartbeat of medieval life. For you, they are more than that. They're the alarm clock telling you it's time to stop working and start waiting for the evening hunger. On the way, you see the village shifting colors. Market stalls being cleared, smoke from braziers drifting through the breeze. Children called home, faces muddy, legs caked, grinning wide, though they carry nothing but clumps of dirt. Adults are silent, shoulders sagging, all looking like survivors of a long battle. And really, it was a battle. Not against soldiers, but against soil, hunger, and time. You pause at the village well. Water glimmers under the last traces of light. But you know better. Drinking straight means risking days bedridden or never getting up again. Modern people have filters and bottled water. Medieval people have faith. Faith that beer, instead of water, at least gives you a chance to live. The wind shifts, stronger with smoke. Someone has lit the fire for supper. The haze drifts above the thatched roofs, staining the purple sky. You smell it, and your stomach growls. That scent doesn't promise a good meal, only that something is boiling, maybe just a pot of thin vegetables. But it is enough. You walk on. The village road grows dark, the mud colder beneath your feet. Rats grow bolder, darting openly across the path. By day they hide. By night they roam, as if the village also belongs to them. You watch them and think, at least they don't work all day just to eat. The sky deepens into violet. The thatch gleams faintly in the last light, then disappears into shadow. Candles flicker on, their little flames trembling through cracks in wooden walls. One glowing, one dark. That is the village's map at night. No street lamps, no electricity, just thick darkness, like a damp blanket thrown over everything. You hear footsteps nearby, whispers rushing low. In this century, darkness doesn't only hide rest, it hides fear. Devils, thieves, sickness, all imagined, waiting in the night. Historians still debate. Were medieval people truly superstitious about the dark? You know this much. When your only light is a flickering candle, imagination has plenty of room to become real. You sigh. Wind whistles through, ash swirls, cold mud clings to your feet. Each step drags heavy. But at last, your hut appears, small, crooked, smoke trickling from its low clay chimney.